I'm going to bring in Rachel Maddow, who is a host, of course, of the Rachel Maddow Show. What do you make of this? As you know, a couple of the wavering Republicans said, you've got to give us a little more room for amendments here. Harry Reid said no. And this is the result.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, it is a historic decision by Republicans to filibuster the defense authorization bill. I mean, this is something that has passed 48 times in 48 years. It just passes. This is one of those things that just passes. And that's why, actually, you've seen over the years lots of amendments, lots of things passed that are attached to this. Originally, when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was instituted, it was passed as an amendment to this bill. In 2007, we saw Republican Senator Orrin Hatch attach the DREAM Act to this bill. Some of John McCain's campaign finance provisions have been attached to this bill. So Republican objections that they are very upset about Democratic amendments to this are a little strange given how many amendments Republicans have attached to it. Also, Harry Reid's office today, my office, back and forth with his today, he insisting and sending us language from Senator Reid's statements on the floor saying he was willing to let Republicans offer amendments. He was willing to let that happen. Democrats had 3. Then he said they would open it up to Republicans. Republicans said, we don't accept your assurances on that, and we're going to filibuster the whole thing.
Let me ask you if this is something this important, something that has been waiting for 17 years, something that really speaks to a lot of concerns of the American people right now. Where are we going with our military? Should this be attached to any bill? Should this have been a straight up or down vote? We know it's an election season, but should Congress people have to go back to their district and say, this is my vote and here's how I defend it?
Well, what they wanted was an up or down vote on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This was what just happened today. The breaking news that we've just had is the Republicans saying the entire defense authorization bill should not come to the floor and should not be voted on at all because we don't want to vote on that Don't Ask, Don't Tell amendment. And they've hidden behind some other procedural things. But that's them saying we would rather not fund the Pentagon than allow the military to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so this is an up or down vote. It was on, I mean, Harry Reid said, Republicans, you want to strip the Don't Ask, Don't Tell language out of there? We'll give you a chance to do that. Republicans are the one that said, no, we don't want any vote. The Pentagon gets nothing because we don't want this gay rights provision to get anywhere near passing.
Okay, it is official now. I've just been handed this update that they have failed to advance this measure for Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It also comes on the same day that President Obama's choice to lead the Marine Corps said he does not favor repealing the law. General James Amos talked to the Senate panel today. He says it would hurt morale and become a distraction for the troops fighting in Afghanistan. You've heard these arguments before. An awful lot of people who are against this, who want to continue who don't want to continue this, have said you can't do this. This is not good for U.S. troops, particularly at a time of war.
Interesting. General Amos is contradicted, of course, by the Defense Secretary and by the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Admiral Mullen, of course, says that he does want to get rid of it, and the Commander-in-Chief says he wants to get rid of it. General Amos's argument was in part based on his perception. He said he thinks most Marines want to keep Don't Ask, Don't Tell. As far as he knows, he thinks it's probably a popular policy among the Marine Corps. Well, him thinking that is neat, but it's not actual information. It's his perception, and that's why it's so important that the military is studying the policy right now. All these people who say they want to defer to military judgment, the military is studying it right now. It's due in December, and the thing that Republicans just filibustered this bill to stop was actually a provision to let the military repeal it if they decided they wanted to. That's what's been blocked.
I want to play what Senator McCain said on Hardball. This was 2 years ago. Senator John McCain.
The President of the United States, we all know, made a commitment to the gay and lesbian community that he would have as one of his priorities repeal of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so now, looking at a bleak electoral situation, we are now...
The day that the leadership of the military comes to me and says, Senator, we ought to change the policy, then I think we ought to consider seriously changing it, because those leaders in the military are the ones we give the responsibility to.
It is my personal belief that allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly would be the right thing to do.
During the State of the Union address, the President announced he will work with Congress this year to repeal the law known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He subsequently directed the Department of Defense to begin the preparations necessary for a repeal of the current law and policy. I fully support the President's decision.
It's a little harder to follow the bouncing ball here.
Yeah. John McCain had said, you know, in 1993, I really listened to Colin Powell, and Colin Powell said he was okay with the don't ask, don't tell policy, keeping people who are openly gay out of the military and witch hunting people out who aren't openly gay but who can be ferreted out of the service. He said, I deferred to Colin Powell's judgment. Then John McCain said after that, you know, if the military leadership eventually changes their mind and said don't ask, don't tell ought to go, I will defer to them then. Now that the military leadership has done that, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Secretary of Defense, and of course the Commander-in-Chief, McCain says, I would like the military to defer to Congress on this. And I have, essentially, he's changed his rationale not only for whether or not the policy is worthwhile, but how it should be changed. It's hard to stomach if you actually care about the merits of this policy. If you only care about watching politicians flip-flop according to whatever they think is in their immediate electoral interest, it's sort of yesterday's news.
Is Lady Gaga helping this whole debate?
Well, she is sharpening up one important part of it, which is, and this is true for a lot of gay rights issues, they're generational. And so you go see Lady Gaga's rally in Portland, Maine, and you look out, she's 24 years old, giving this impassioned speech, and you look out at that sea of 20-year-old faces of people who are her fans, and you look at the polling numbers and how younger people feel about gay rights, and you contrast it with John McCain, Susan Collins, frankly,
and the people
Scott
who are making
Brown,
these votes.
and the people who are making these votes.
But what does that say for the prospects for this?
It says ultimately
Wait
that
20 years?
Well, no, it says ultimately the people, I think, who want to fight for it will earn young people's votes for doing it and will be seen as the future. And people who want to stop it will be seen as the past. But it doesn't mean there's not short-term gain in it.
Rachel Maddow, we'll see you later tonight.
Chris, thanks so
You'll
much
have
for
a thing
having
or
me
two more to say
I
about
might
this.
I'll come up with something.
Okay. For much more, just not about this, but all the day's big stories, catch Rachel at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and of course, only here on MSNBC.